All right, here we go. Got another podcast bringing Tag back on the pod. We're gonna talk some NFL today. I know Tag, you've been on here, I think just once, or maybe a
I
couple
think it was once,
times.
yeah. It was for the
But
NFL draft.
yeah, yeah. How you been so far with the NFL season? The Cowboys have been a little up and then down, and then
Yeah, that's kind of the story of the Cowboys, isn't it? It's like you'll get the highs of kicking a team's butt, and then the very next week you'll go out and get smacked by a team you feel like you shouldn't get smacked by. It's like the story of the like knowing the Cowboys, they'll come out against the Ravens this week, a team that's probably better than them and should run all over them, beat them by like three, and you'll be like, are the Cowboys good again? Who knows?
all right. That's kind of the beauty of the NFL, where you can no game is just like chalk it up as a win. Obviously, me being a Ravens fan, probably I felt that way going into the Raiders game, and I definitely felt that way in the Raiders game, up 10 in the fourth quarter. But
Yeah,
it's
Gardner
kind of
Minshew
what they
turned it on
do.
late in that game. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah,
I'm really high on that team. I really like the Raiders. I
the
didn't think they were going to
Raiders.
beat the Ravens there, but I really do like that team.
Yeah, they're I don't even know what to think of them because after week one, I was kind of like out. I was like, I don't really know
Yeah.
what to think. And then the week one happened, and I was like, oh my God. And Antonio Pierce punted on that one fourth down. That was the worst coaching decision I've ever seen. And
Oh, yeah, it's up there.
yeah, so I don't know. We'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
one thing before we kind of get into some of the biggest games of the weekend coming up here, I want to ask you about is just watching your content and stuff. I feel like I've seen a big um change, and I don't know if you want to call it improvement or whatever, in terms of just like your knowledge of the game. And I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you what you attribute that to, how you have gone through that process of learning more, where you're at with your learning, and anything like that.
Yeah, I recently changed my bio last night. I put ball learner in the bio because like I didn't play high school football. I played basketball in high school. I'm so much more well versed on like basketball concepts. I
Sure.
can watch a basketball game and I can be like, oh, okay, I understand what's going on here. But for football for a long time, like I really liked watching football. On any given play, I didn't know what was going on. There's so many little things. It's
Hmm.
such a nuanced game, and it's partly why I've fallen in love with it over the past couple of years. But it's really just like internet research. A lot of times I'll just look up like that Michael Parsons video I made, I'll look up running concepts and I'll watch a video of some college coach doing uh like going over counter runs or going over zone schemes or going over gap schemes or going over duos
Hmm.
or uh, anything of that nature, right? On the Dak video I made a couple months ago, I watched. I think he's the Texas A&M head coach now, but he used to be the DC at Duke, and he made a video on what it takes to be successful on third down. And it's those kind of videos I look for from coaches,
Hmm.
people who are involved in the sport, to kind of like teach me. And then of course I'll listen to people in the comments. Some guy DM'd me. I wish I could show it on here, but it was like he played high school football. He was like lecturing me on like counter runs and how to defend it. I was like, this is crazy. I don't know you, but I totally appreciate it. So it's a mixture of like researching and then having people teach me because I have people in real life in my life who also play football who've helped me out as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important because honestly, I think there's a lot of people out there that played high school football and think they know everything about football when in reality they don't know anything.
Yeah. Did you
Um,
play football in high school?
I did. I played, since second grade through high school.
Mhm.
But, I played offensive line, and then as I got older, played offensive line and linebacker. And even then, like I didn't fully understand like the reasoning behind everything. Like I played linebacker and I was like I played O-line and linebacker. So I was a small offensive lineman, but like really like bigger, slower, just like plugging run gaps linebacker. Like I couldn't really like break down. I had a general idea of shells of like cover two and cover
Yeah.
three and cover four and like what that looks like, but I didn't really understand the responsibilities of everybody. I was just kind of
Yeah.
like, if it's a pass, I'm gonna like float a little bit in the back here and like I have no
Yeah.
responsibilities. Like people will also because I think it's important that you're putting in the extra study because people will play high school football and then think that means that they know everything, and it's just not even close to being true.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, are there any specific like content creators that you watch that you feel like you consistently learn from, or is it just random, like, oh, I heard this term, but I don't really know what it means, so I'm gonna look it up?
Yeah, well, Brett Coleman. Brett Coleman's a big one.
Yeah.
I really like his page, his YouTube channel. I feel like he's
He
really
makes it not
dedicated into
boring.
teaching people. Yeah, it's like teaching people, but not being so mundane. That's one of the gripes I'll have about some of the coach videos I watch. It's like, dude, can you have a little pep in your step, man? And it's like I'm watching a grandmother teach things.
Hmm.
So Brett Coleman is kind of like a happy medium of teaching you things while also being entertained. And Theo's a big inspiration of
Yeah.
mine. Every video I ever post, it's like this guy sounds like Theo Ash. There was one video I posted a couple months ago, and there was a comment. He's like, "Dude, I can't even like hear what you're saying because you just sound like Theo to me." It's like, is this a compliment? I don't. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Theo, and
Theo's
then
awesome.
yeah, Anthony Lawson, Esquire Sports Anthony.
Hmm.
He's like one of the bigger reasons I started my account. And that's why it was so funny when somebody added me on one of his pages or one of his posts and was like, "Why does he copy your flow?" So I was like, "Well, I've been trying to lose that cadence for like the past couple months, buddy. You don't need to bring it back up."
I think
But I
in
would say
terms
those
of
three.
a new like content creator, it's you shouldn't feel bad about like copying other people at first. Like you kind of have to find your own voice, but the only way to find your own voice is to start. And when you can like kind of use a template that someone else has and kind of build your foundation, I think that goes a long way for you to actually find um your voice, your style. So I don't think you should feel bad about that at all, as long as like you're not just saying exactly what he's saying, and then you kind of make things your own.
That's why
Um,
I don't view it as a problem, is because like I'm not ripping him off.
no,
It's almost like in music paying homage to somebody, like taking like somebody, it's like being influenced by somebody. That's the way I feel. Like
yeah,
I was very heavily influenced by him. And now that I've gotten more popular and I've kind of had my own uh garnered my own following, I kind of tried to stray away and kind of like be me now instead of
mhm,
sounding like
definitely,
somebody else.
definitely. Just throw one more name in there. I have been watching a lot of QB school content on YouTube. I don't know why I can't think of his name. Former NFL
Uh
player.
oh, JT O'Sullivan.
Yeah,
I do like his videos, however, I hate him. Honestly the same breath as the other former backup quarterback.
Kurt
The one that
Benkert.
really, yes, the one that's just like his takes are awful. Like at least QB school, JT O'Sullivan, he knows what he's talking. Well, they both know what they're talking about, especially
Yeah,
with quarterbacks. But JT O'Sullivan, his takes are good. But there was that Twitter thread a couple weeks ago where he was talking to somebody, and it was about Caleb Williams in the film room, and he was like, "Well, there's other clips of him." He was complaining about him not taking notes, and he's like, "There's other clips of him taking notes, bro." He's like, "Oh, so you've been in a lot of quarterback meetings, like kind of that he's like above you because." And
yeah,
his take is more valid than you because he was in the league. And that's not true. Did you just see like Chase Daniel propose that awful trade between the Rams, the
yeah. That made
Dolphins,
no
and the
sense.
Panthers? Just because you're in the league doesn't mean you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that trade wasn't it like I don't want to miscredit what he said, but I remember like it like kind of made sense for two of the teams. But then the Rams were literally just trading like Stafford for
For
Bryce
no
Young,
reason.
and it was
Yeah,
like
yeah. Like,
why?
why would
What?
you do
Like
that?
what? Like he's like, yeah, it makes sense. Like they get the contract off the books, so they blow it up and restart because this
No.
season's like going down the trash. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But
Every year we do that with the Rams.
like even if that was the plan, like start over, blow it up, get the money off the Bucks, like that wouldn't be the return. Whatever. But yeah, I do like his content a lot, but he definitely gets like weirdly sassy on social media and stuff. But I don't know. I just like his content because it's the QB school and like the title of the video will be, Derek Carr week 2 analysis versus Cowboys, but
Yeah.
he'll like dive into the whole offense. It's not just like from a quarterback's perspective.
Yeah, I
So I
do
find that better.
appreciate how he doesn't go into like the whole YouTube meta thumbnail kind of things. He's just like, hey, this is what's happening. Like
Hmm.
comment, like the video titles are like that. Like you said, it's not
Yeah.
trying to get anything like it's very informative.
Yeah. And once you kind of start to gain, I've like wanted to learn more about football in the past, but like the process of learning it kind of felt like school rather than something fun. So I'd never fully get into it. And I even did a semester of the scouting academy. and it was like you'd watch lectures, and there'd be like these hour, 2 hour long videos of coaches in the early 2000s on like a projector and a marker, and they'd, you know, do describe the concepts of counter or trap or duo or whatever. And then you have to like watch film and then write an essay and then have a sit down with the guy, and he would like say like what you did right and wrong. Which, if anyone is looking to get into like scouting or like a really deeper understanding of football, that is like the best way to do it in terms of bang for your buck, shortest period of time. But I feel like I learn better when it's something I'm interested in and I'm like actually just trying to learn it because I want to learn it rather than forcing myself to do it. And
Yeah.
this kind of way of watching YouTube videos and like when I have a question, then looking that up. And then now using the NFL Plus, but NFL Pro specifically to watch film. I think a big thing is then applying it and rewatching games and being like, oh, what I do is I'll rewatch these games and every single time I just look at the safeties and I try to like in my head say, okay, they're in a cover two shell. And then they rotate. And I'm like, okay, this is now single high. It's either cover one or it's cover three or it's some type of man coverage, whatever. And
Mhm.
then I kind of just let the play run out from there. And I don't know. I feel like it's not really something you can just get a textbook, study it, read it, and then you're done and you know it. You just gotta like
Yeah.
know basic principles and then watch a lot.
Yeah.
And then you kind of see some more stuff. So, however, you can make that fun because it's going to be a lot of like time and effort to build that. I think it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. I think making videos is a great way to make it fun because it's almost like interactive, you know? It's
Hmm.
applying yourself to actually learning the context. It's like getting in school, learning about multiplication and then getting a sheet where you're practicing multiplication. Maybe you're not going to get everything right from the first
Right.
time, but that's part of the learning process.
Definitely. So I think that was a cool conversation, but I want to get into some of the games of this weekend, and we don't have to go through every game, but maybe we'll just kind of go back and forth and pick a game
Uh,
to kind of talk about whether it's the game, the state of that team, whatever.
yeah.
And I thought it would just be cool to start because the Ravens, my favorite team, and the Cowboys are playing this
There
week.
we go.
We can kind of talk about the state of both teams.
Special
I guess
season right
just
here.
to put it out there too, I've been this can be a whole nother episode of a podcast in terms of team fandom stuff. I'm a Ravens fan, but I'm from upstate New York. Hometown team is the Bills. My dad's been a season ticket holder for like 30 years at this point. Been to a million Bills games. But when I was 10, I wanted to be different and like a team because I liked them rather than everyone else liked them. So I picked the Ravens just because they had like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, and they beat the Patriots one year in the playoffs. And
Yeah.
um, so that's kind of my story for liking the Ravens, but especially as I've gotten older, I've realized the benefit of, and especially leaving my hometown, like liking a team from essentially your hometown and like the nostalgia of it, the like community feeling. Like I didn't appreciate that when I was 8. Um,
Yeah.
so I would consider myself a fan of both.
There
But
you go.
like if you want to get really technical, I'm a Ravens fan first.
Yes.
Long way of
I like the way
explaining
you
it.
think.
Whenever someone asks me, I like feel bad to say the Ravens because I have no
Mhm.
reason other than I just
Yeah.
like started liking them when I was 10. So I always
Mhm.
say like the hometown team is the Bills. Grew up going to games with my dad all the time. But when I was 10, I started liking the Ravens. So it's like kind of
Yeah.
both. But
Yeah.
all right. You can go ahead and give your Cowboys the current state of the Cowboys spiel.
I feel like the current state of the Cowboys is I know the same that it's always been. It's an explosive team, although there are some things that are different. It's an explosive team. They're gonna get in some games with some decent teams like the Browns, and they're gonna kick their butts. But they're gonna get against a team that runs wide zone, that runs any kind of power run scheme, and they're gonna get bullied. And it's because of this D tackle room. It was bad last year outside of also Odigizua, but Jonathan Hankins made up for a lot of it. But he let Jonathan Hankins walk. Now it's literally only Oso Odigizua. Mozzie Smith is terrible. Linval Joseph is awful. Jordan Phillips just got put on IR. Like the definition of a dude who's playing bad, so let's put him on IR. they made up some wrist injury, and he said something in an oppressor, and I was like, yeah, they definitely just put him on iron because he sucks. And then the DBs just lack physicality. It's why they struggle with wide zones specifically, or it's definitely
Can't set an edge.
yeah. Uh, and then the linebacker play. It's really bad last week. Oh my goodness. DeMarvion Overshown is a really athletic player, and I think he really has a role in the league. But he's just got to get bigger, man. There were so many times, like people, Cowboys fans are complaining, why isn't he on the field? It's because you get that dude one on one on a guard. The guard's winning. It doesn't matter who it is. Like the Saints guards aren't otherworldly, but they were throwing him around like a rag doll. Uh, and then the offense outside of CeeDee Lamb, man, Jake Ferguson's going to be out for the next couple weeks. It's bad, really bad. Like nobody can get open. It was atrocious last week. I think it's going to be atrocious this week against I would say a weaker Ravens secondary compared to the Saints. Not gonna get better. I mean, the Saints didn't have Marshawn Lattimore last week, and they still nobody was getting open. It was a really watch. What do you think of the Ravens starting 0-2 here? Do you think it's a bit of a fluke nature? Maybe play a Super Bowl contender and then get unlucky against the Raiders, or think it's a measure for some bad things to come?
Well, it's kind of tough because I think they're still a very good, like, I'm not worried about them in terms of they're 0-2. Are they just bad? I'm not worried in that sense. Like, I don't think they're just a bad team.
Yeah.
Where I am worried is that they have severe offensive line problems. Um, they have some young guys that are trying to fill in. They retooled the offensive line. They traded away Morgan Moses. They let Kevin Zeitler go. Um, and I don't think it's like dead in the water. Like I think they have some pieces that throughout a season they can figure it out. And kind of a similar thing on the defensive side, they lost a bunch of pieces, and they obviously lost Mike McDonald, and replaced him with Zach Orr. And kind of the secondary and pass defense is going through like a retooling in terms of figuring it out a little bit. And I have confidence that they will figure that out. But the reason this loss to the Raiders is so big is because in the first 5 weeks, this was the only game that you could be like, I'm very confident they're going to win. They play the Cowboys this week, who are a good team. And then the following week, I think it's the Bills. They play the Bills and the Bengals after these 2 weeks.
Yeesh.
I
Yeah,
forget the order. And if you start off 1-4 or 0-5 in the AFC, like I don't care if you figure it all out in week 10 and you're an amazing team from week 10 to week 18. Like you're not making the playoffs.
yeah.
So they have to
Sucks
figure
week
it out
one.
now. I think they can. Like they have the personnel and they have Lamar Jackson and they have good defensive personnel and it's weird. So because I feel like this Ravens team, if they can figure out the offensive line, actually has, higher offensive upside, maybe. I feel like they could figure it out and be like a powerhouse in the NFL.
Mhm.
But they might be digging themselves too big a hole, and losing that Raiders game is a big deal because their first 5 games are like, well, that's tough. And they
Yeah.
barely lost to the Chiefs. I don't know. When it comes to the Cowboys, specifically for this week, I'm very torn on what's going to happen because the Ravens have a very good secondary, but they play a lot of man coverage and they tend to struggle when there's like like one elite receiver. If there's receivers that are all like, you know, if there was a team that had all, I don't know, who's a good wide receiver too, like all T Higgins, where they're like pretty good player and they have a lot of them. Like the Ravens will be fine. They'll like shut down the run game. They're always good at that, and
Mhm.
they'll be really good. But when there's one elite receiver, it was always AJ Green back in the day, and they always get demolished by Jamar Chase whenever they play the Bengals now. So I'm very worried that they're going to be able to just take away their like, you know, the Saints. I felt like did a good job of making someone else beat them for the Cowboys. And
Yes,
I don't know if
exactly.
the Ravens going to be able to do that because they somehow always struggle with that. And then it's going to come down to can they run the ball? And that's just like they have Derrick Henry, and we saw a little bit in the Raiders game of that getting going in the second half. But the
Mhm.
offensive line is struggling, and the Ravens have been running more outside zone, and Derrick Henry's really good at that. Gets on the edge, and then he's faster than you'd think for someone that's 6'3", 250, and then he's stiff arming corners. I feel like that could be do a lot of damage against the Cowboys team. But at the same time, Lamar does they have a young offensive line that they need to figure out, and the Cowboys have a great pass rush. So it's like, where's the give and take there? Like, where's it going to fall? And then the other thing is Lamar creates a lot out of structure, and will oftentimes, because of that, have one or two plays a game where he's going to put the ball in harm's way. And the Cowboys have a very opportunistic secondary. So I think that what this
Mhm.
game is going to come down to is, does Derrick Henry break a few, and when Lamar gets pressured and has to roll out of the pocket, Trayvon Diggs has great ball skills as he's going to throw one or two up.
Yeah, that's that's what I've noticed about these two teams specifically compared to the Saints. The Saints are very good at plugging up their weaknesses. You saw last week they kind of no Marshawn Lattimore. You're playing against CeeDee Lamb. Hey, let's bracket CeeDee Lamb and dare you to throw to anybody else. Uh, they had like Paulson and Debo following Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, and just say, go lock this dude up by yourself. On the other side, we'll take care of CeeDee Lamb.
I thought Tolbert actually showed a little bit, but at the same
Mhm.
time, it's not like you're expecting Tolbert to be a
Yeah,
huge.
with Tolbert's your wide receiver too. But when he's your wide receiver three, you're like, oh, okay, pretty good
Yeah.
offense. Not so much if he's up on the depth chart. And then with the Ravens, it's the same thing where I feel like uh, not that they're bad at hiding their weaknesses, but in week one against the Chiefs, it looked, I don't say it looked rough, but I'm specifically thinking of them coming out in the second drive. You have a rookie right tackle out there, and you're putting him one on one against George Karlaftis. He gets shoved to the side, and there's a sack. The Saints were so much better at hide. Their offensive line, personnel wise, still isn't elite. Right now, it's playing elite, but
Mhm.
it's not like that good as it is. But Clint Kubiak is doing so much to help them. He's sending chip help. He's running play action. He's setting up the defense to, well, oh, we think they're going one way, but we're going the other way. And so he's helping them kind of cover up for how bad they are. Like, I think if Clint Kubiak left next year and they ran with the same unit, Trevor Penning might still be good because he's looked a lot better than I expected him. But some of the other people on that offensive line, it might be rough. Although Cesar Ruiz has looked very good, but Clint Kubiak is doing a lot to elevate that unit. That I feel like the Cowboys and the Ravens at this point really don't have the coaching, especially with Mike McDaniel gone, like to elevate some of those weaker units. But specifically the Cowboys, they definitely they've got some weak units. They had weak units last year, and you can tell when they play a well coached team. But I
Mhm.
think the Ravens at this point are a better coach than the Cowboys. Obviously,
Yeah,
Jim Harbaugh. I mean, they both won a Super Bowl, but
I don't think either team has like a distinct advantage.
yeah,
Um, and it feels like uh both teams, when they, well, I should the Ravens, I was gonna say, when both teams like get up and get going, like there's no stopping it. The Ravens have I But I stopped myself because the Ravens also have a history of just blowing fourth quarter leads. I'm talking about, like, there was a lot of games last year. Like, they played the Lions and it was like 21-3 in the first quarter, and they won the game like 35-10 or something like that. And they just get
Niners
out
had that
ahead, and
too.
it's like, see you later. I feel like the
Mhm.
Cowboys are very much like that too. And then if it's like a closer game, I don't know. I don't know.
I feel
Then
like the
it all gets weird.
Cowboys, yeah, the Cowboys rarely, I don't say rarely, but they rarely lose those close games. It's every time we get into the playoffs. I feel like we don't lose games where it's like down the stretch, and then Brock Purdy makes a smooth drive where he's delivering some strikes against zone coverage, kicks a 45-yard field goals. It's always some ridiculous, like we got our ass kicked or something insane happens at the end of the game. It's like, come on.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing in the regular season. The Cowboys, I think maybe we lost one, maybe two games. I think in the Dolphins game, the game that was just close, and the other quarterback goes down, drives, and
Hmm.
Tua made a great play in that game. But it was like when we lost, it was like getting our ass kicked by the 49ers loss.
Hmm.
It was very rarely um, just like two hard fought battle it out teams. It was either we were kicking somebody's ass or we were getting our ass kicked.
Yeah. This is kind
Like
of like
the
the way
Eagles
that
were a
team
close
goes.
game, the Dolphins were a close game, and other than that,
Then it's
feel
like the
like it could be
Packers.
challenging. Yeah, that game still pisses me off. Jordan Love, I don't think Jordan Love threw to a single covered receiver all day. It was not like every single throw, there was like 4 yards of separation.
Yeah. I do think the Cowboys are a very good team, but they have a specific weakness against
Yeah.
those wide zone teams. Those
And
Shanahan
those teams will
style
know
teams.
it and they will spam it and they will
Yep.
bully them.
Like I was rewatching some of that Saints Cowboys game, and it was like they're getting 5, 6 yards a pop every single time they're running outside zone with Alvin Kamara, and this O line's getting push, and then they're gonna run play action. All the linebackers are gonna bite down, and then there's this wide open space in between where the linebackers are supposed to be and where the safeties are covering Rashid Shaheed deep. And then when the safeties kind of bite down a little bit to cover those in breaking routes to Chris Olave, then you pop one over the top. Honestly, that Shaheed play was like kind of just like covered, and Derek Carr out through the
Just shot right
coverage.
through. Yeah. They kind
So
of got a little flat footed at the top, and it's just like a certain point where Sheets going to run past the safety, but it was a great
yeah,
throw by Derek Carr. I don't think it
yeah.
was like a coverage buster.
So I think that's kind of the thing to look uh like in terms of matchups with the Cowboys moving forward. Um,
Yeah.
so from my perspective, I hope the Ravens really stress that outside
And
zone.
I think they will. I think they're going to run behind uh, Ronnie Stanley a lot if he plays.
Yeah. So that's the hope, and I don't know.
PJ too.
We'll see. We will see because Lamar also loves to attack the middle of the field. And that's kind of like the Cowboys' weaknesses. We'll see if they can take advantage. We'll see if the offensive line puts it together. But is there
I
another
think
game
they're
you want
going
to talk
to.
about? Sorry.
Oh, let's see. Let's see. Um, Ones that are interesting to me. There's a couple that are intriguing to me that I think could
hmm
be upsets. Cardinals and Lions is one.
You think the
I
Cardinals are
really like the
gonna?
Cardinals. I think the Cardinals can beat that team. And then in that division, Lions starting 1-2, that could be rough for them. You're talking about not winning that division. And then the
mhm,
NFC, not it's not exactly a stack. I don't think it's a death wish for them, but you're talking about getting the seventh seed and then going on the road and playing like the Eagles. Maybe
Right.
you get unlucky and the 49ers are the 2 seed.
hmm
So it's kind of really crucial to win that division, I think, right now. But I mean, Jordan Love's not coming back for a couple of weeks. Who knows how consistent Sam Darnold is going to be? I don't know if it'll be that much of a death wish. Starting off 1-2 is never good.
So paint the picture of how the Cardinals pull this. It's like a 3-point spread, but how they pull
Yeah.
this upset off.
Similar to kind of how they almost beat the Bills. It's you got to get in the shootout. That
hmm
Cardinals defense is not good. They had a 3.4 pressure rate, 3.4% pressure rate week one against the Bills. That's like alienly low. That's you'd never hear that. It rose like to 40%, I think, when they played the Rams. So the Rams offensive line right now is really, really bad. It's like the
Yeah,
worst it's been since
that's
they
what I'm
hired
worried
Matthew
about for the
Stafford.
Cardinals going into this. But yeah, keep
hmm
going.
And the offensive line for the Lions is really good. So they're not going to get any pressure, and I don't think they're going to get very many stops. And I think honestly, you're not going to see a lot of Jared Goff aired out to Jameson Williams and Amon St. Brown type of plays. It's going to be, hey, let's hand it off to Damon Montgomery at the middle and just bully that shit out of this team because they cannot hang with us. However, I don't think the Lions defense can hang with the Cardinals offense. So I think if the Cardinals are going to compete with this team, which I think they can, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to end like 34-28, like the Bills game did. They just have to, I think, either one, get the ball last, or two, which is why I think they beat the Lions. They lost the Bills because Josh Allen. Josh Allen went out and did Josh Allen things. Lions don't have Josh Allen. Like Jared Goff. Jared Goff's not going to go out there and do Jared Goff things. So I think you kind of have that advantage at quarterback. And I think, or I'm confident that Cardinals can pull it out because of that. Because they kind of
I,
had the Bills on the ropes.
yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of the route for the Cardinals to win this game is to that connection with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison keeps growing, and they get out ahead and get in the shootout, like you said.
Mhm.
I'm really worried about their pass rush doing anything. Like it was awful against the
So
Bills.
bad.
And then I think the only reason they had success against the Rams is because the Rams were literally on their like fourth and fifth string tackles.
Yeah, I was
And they
watching
were
their
just
like
like,
Dennis Gardeck played, and that left tackle that was guarding him, I forget his name. He fell for like he was like an NFL player falling for like a cross chop where he like stuck his like really bad falling for it. You see some people fall for it and a hole, but he fell for it really bad. Davis Garlic planted his top foot up and he really fell in a speed rush and then he just ran inside and it was like the freest sack I've ever seen. I haven't
Yeah.
seen a tackle fall that poorly for one of those moves in ages.
Like I'd be shocked if Dennis Gardick does much of anything against
Yeah.
Taylor Decker or Penei Sewell.
Similar like he did with the
And they
Vikings.
have their interior D line is non-existent as well. So
And back your plays look really good.
yeah, I feel like the Lions are going to be able to run the ball really well, and then once they're biting on it, play action, attack the middle of the field. But I guess we'll see. Like if I think my biggest takeaway from last week in that Cardinals game, yes, I think that their performance was a little inflated because the Rams are so beat up, but I've been saying all offseason that Kyler Murray needs to, everyone's starting to forget about him, and he's like legitimately one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. And I kept trying to push him into top 10 conversations, and it was hard for me to have, validity other than just like, I can recognize his talent because, he had missed so much of the last 2 years and people kind of forgot. But I think he's really showing like the level of player that he is, and people are starting to like remember. Um, so that's kind of my take on that game. I honestly do think the Lions are going to kind of roll in this one, and the front seven for the Cardinals isn't really going to be able to hold up. But um,
Yeah,
that's
one
kind of what
argument I
I'm
can see
thinking.
somebody making is the Lions kind of controlling the time of possession and keeping the ball out of Kyler's hands and kind of but keeping the ball out of Kyler's hands and like eliminating explosive plays with that offense. And I don't think the Cardinals can play the style. Well, no, they definitely. I think they can play the style of offense that the Lions do, but
Yeah, their
they're
run
much
game is
more
really
effective.
nice.
It's really good. I forget what their OC's name out there, but he has been
Uh,
James
Pet,
Conner and the offensive
Drew
coordinators.
Petzing, right?
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
that's
James
what
Conner is awesome.
I could see them kind of strolling out there this week and trying to control the time of possession game.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way to do it. But we'll see. You got anything else from that game, or are you ready to move on?
Watch Buda Baker.
Yeah,
That's
he's
a
fun.
player.
He's
Oh,
fun.
yeah, I was listening. Yeah, I was listening to Brett Coleman before the season. He was like, that Cardinals defense is quite literally just going to be him rolling around playing Superman.
Yeah,
And that's what he was doing last week. He was rolling around playing Superman. I want to see if he does it again against a good Lions team.
he's small. He's a small dude. He's probably what, 5'10", like 180 or something.
Yeah, I want to say
I
he's
don't.
even
That's just
5'10".
like a guess. But I've never seen someone so fearlessly like use every ounce of momentum and just launch their body at people as consistently as he does. Like he'll just like fill a run gap and blow up a 210-pound running back, and he's tiny. And like normally you see that, and these guys will hit someone, and like they get like hurt like just as much as the guy they hit because they're just like throwing their body so hard. And he just pops up every single time, and it's crazy to see.
Yeah,
Crazy.
he's one of those guys that you could definitely tell he loves football. He just loves the
Yeah,
game.
it's awesome. So the next
Is there a
game
game you're
I
looking at?
wanna. Well, sorry, what was that?
Is there a game you're looking at here?
Yeah, so
Interesting one.
there's two that kind of stick out to me the most, remaining. And one of them is Eagles Saints, but I feel like we talked a little bit about the Saints. We can get into that after this one if that's where we want to go, if that's where you want to go. But I want to talk about Texans Vikings. Um, Watching the Texans early this year has changed me from I think they're a very good team, and last year they were very good, and on paper they're better this year. But do we really continue that? Is progression always linear? Are they going to regress a little bit because CJ Stroud played so good last year and that was so unexpected? They're going to regress a little bit from that. Like, are we overvaluing them? I've taken that from like that's a real possibility from that my stance was that this offseason. In the first 2 weeks, I'm like, holy crap. No, like these guys are legit Super Bowl contenders. CJ Stroud is so good in structure, but is also so good out of structure. He's got that like mind meld with Nico Collins, where Nico Collins legitimately looks like he could be a freaking top five receiver in this league. And they're not only so great in structure, but they are also hitting those plays where it's like, okay, things don't go perfect. We need a first down to beat the Colts. CJ Stroud rolls out pinpoint accuracy to Nico Collins on the sideline, and he barely gets a knee in. And then on top of that, they struggled to run the ball last year. They didn't really run the ball that good against the Bears, but against the Colts, where you saw Joe Mixon just like hammering people, getting 30 carries. None of them went for more than 13 yards, but he averaged like 6 yards a carry and ran for like 160. It's like if they have that level on offense, like that level of consistency where they can take advantage of the run game, which is becoming even more valuable in the NFL right now. And then CJ Stroud is dominant in structure and dominant out of structure. And they have this receiving core on top of having a great defensive coach. I think their secondary is the one kind of weak point, but the overall scheme of the defense, I think, is great. So I think they're legit Super Bowl contenders. And then on the other side, the Vikings have been extremely pleasantly surprising to me because I think they have an amazing roster overall. When you talk about the improvements they made in the secondary, they lost Daniil Hunter, but they kind of improved the edge rushing group as a whole. They have a great offensive line with two great young tackles. They have the best receiver in the league. They have another good two young receivers where we see Jordan Addison being great and Jalen Naylor now making some plays. They got a good running game. And then they have a top 5 to 10 offensive minded coach and for all I know, top 1 to 3 defensive mind. So with that level of coaching, with that roster, and the one piece is like, well, does it all matter if their quarterback isn't good and it's Sam Darnold? And I think he's looked very good. I think some people are overrating how good specifically he has been, but like the product of the quarterback play when you mesh the play calling with the level of his play has been
Mhm.
good. Like if you were giving them grades, I'd give like Sam Darnold like an 80 and Kevin O'Connell like a 95, and then you get, you know, what's the average of that? Like 92
87
grade
probably.
from your quarterback,
Yeah,
if that makes
92.
sense.
Yeah, something like that. One thing
Or
I'll
yeah,
say about CJ
87.
Stroud, uh, that a lot of people kind of expected him to have a sophomore slump this year.
Hmm.
And it definitely happens. The sophomore slump, that's not like it's not a fake phenomenon. The sophomore slump does happen, but the sophomore slump doesn't happen to quarterbacks that play like 10-year vets. There's a reason coming out of college. I didn't have a TikTok at the time, but like to my friends, I compared him to Dak. It's because CJ Stroud has a good arm. It's not alien, it's not Josh Allen type, it's not Patrick Mahomes type
Hmm.
arm. He's a good athlete. He's not like a Lamar Jackson type athlete, not Jalen Hurts type of athlete. But he is so smart.
Hmm.
Like
Which matters way
and
more.
yeah. And that's the same thing with Dak. Like, he doesn't have a crazy arm. He's not a crazy athlete coming out of college, although he could improvise. He was very smart. He knew what defenses were throwing at him. And I'm very interested to see that matchup between Brian Flores, who very much is like, hey, let's put Harrison Smith down in the slot and have him in a deep pass. Like very much mixing up what he's looking at, trying to confuse him pre-snap, and then giving them a completely different look post-snap. Kind of seeing him and playing against that defense because Brian Flores will feast on young quarterbacks. He just did it to Brock Purdy. He's done it his entire career. But one person I was trying to figure out the history of Dallas versus the Cowboys. Interesting. Dallas versus the Dolphins when Brian Flores was there. Because I want to say they played a game and Dak played pretty well against them. Because yeah, they played in 20. Ooh, please don't do that to me. Okay, I'll get back to that point later. But yeah, I'm excited to see that kind of matchup between somebody who is young but just plays so much older than he actually is. Like everyone was making fun of
Hmm.
him the way he was talking about Caleb Williams or talking to Caleb Williams as if he's like Tom Brady or something. But I mean, there's some merit to it. CJ Stroud is like a veteran. It's nuts. And one thing Brian Flores likes to do that CJ Stroud is very good against is the blitz. Uh, and then one thing I will say about the Texans play calling, you mentioned the run. One thing about Bobby Slowick, he's going to try to run the damn ball. No matter how unsuccessful it is on first down, He's going to try to run the ball.
Yeah.
And against the Vikings, and it works against a team like the Colts, who's banged up out there. They were missing Samson Ebukam. I don't know if they were missing DeForest Buckner yet. I don't think they were, but still,
Regardless,
they're
their
not very
run
good at
defense has been
stopping the run.
awful.
Yeah,
Like
their
really.
linebacker play is very subpar. So, yeah, Joe Mixon running for rushing for 120 yards against the Colts. Cool, I guess, but doing it against the Vikings, probably not going to do it. But yeah, they're definitely going to try to run the ball. And the Vikings are a team where I feel like, especially on defense, there's a lot of holes there. Like I've mentioned before, you losing one of your corners, like one of them loses their life, and then one of them tears their ACL. You're down so many bodies in an already weak group. But they are so well coached.
Hmm.
Coaching matters, and if I had to make an argument with a team and how much it matters, it would be the Vikings, 100%.
Yeah. It's interesting to see. The other thing is obviously the kind of Shanahan tree has taken over the league. And that's kind of the new meta of NFL offense. But Brian Flores has now 2 years in a row, like, had a lot of success against Kyle Shanahan in the 49ers. Um, and the Texans are from that same tree. Bobby Slowick is from that Shanahan tree. So do we see this Vikings defense? Is this just the kryptonite of Shanahan offense? But I think what it does is it makes it from you're so used to having these like easier reads for explosive plays, and the Vikings with Brian Flores like muddy that, and they make the timing off. Does that blow up the Texans offense? Or does the element of CJ Stroud having such a quick processor then combat that? And it's kind of like a unstoppable force versus an immovable object, and like what's going to give. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. If I had to lean a certain way, I I I think I lean Texans
Mhm.
because I think CJ Stroud can make things happen once that first thing is kind of gone. More, I think Purdy actually does play decently well out of structure. Like he makes stuff happen a little bit. He doesn't get enough credit for that, but I think CJ Stroud is kind of a next level.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but it's such a toss up to me. Like I'm not betting on this at all.
And another thing with the Niners too is they do have a lot of bodies as far as like, I mean, everybody makes fun of Purdy. It's like, oh, when he doesn't have six all pro, when he has five instead of six all pros, he looks like a bum. But the 49ers don't have a lot of bodies that like are good at getting open against man coverage. We saw that in the Super
Mhm.
Bowl. You
It's
see
just
that against
Ayuk
any
and no
team
one else.
that plays man. Yeah. Texans don't have that problem. Their third best receiver, Stephon Diggs, unreal. That's his best trait right now.
Hmm.
He's not the deep threat he used to be, but he's great at getting open against man coverage.
Hmm.
Brian Flores likes to run a lot of cover zero. Kyle Shanahan has historically struggled against cover zero. Bobby Sloak, we don't have the data like long term for him at that point. But one thing I will say about Bobby Sloak compared to the other people that are come from that Shanahan tree, he doesn't seem as creative as a passing game coordinator as the rest of
Hmm.
them. A lot of it last year was like run, third and long. CJ Stroud, go bail us out. And CJ Stroud bailed them out a lot. And that's why I kind of thought he would take a step back. I didn't think he would take that big of a step back, but I
Hmm.
thought INT luck, third down luck, it's gonna like halt a little bit, and he's not gonna look as alienly good as he was last year. It's looking like I'm gonna be wrong 2 weeks in this season. Who knows? I think this is a big test. I think there's gonna be a lot of situations. Third and long, looks like they're in cover one. Oh shit, they're running Tampa 2. How is that even possible? It's gonna be interesting to see how he
Yeah. I made a
goes
video
down.
on the Vikings linebacking core, and it's like one of the most fun things to watch for me because uh it starts with, I mean, Blake Cashman, who was a Texan last year, he's a really good player, and he's really fun the way he gets deployed. He's really underrated. And then they have like a chess piece in Andrew Van Ginkel, who is a great edge rusher, but also is so good at covering those like swing passes and like throws to the flat. Like you
He
saw
almost had two
him,
picks on him.
yeah, like you saw him have that pick six against Daniel Jones. And he's so good at that. And with the rise of two high shells and everyone throwing the ball underneath, it's a lot of like, okay, like you have to just um throw the ball shorter and be fine with getting 3, 4 yards of play. And a lot of times that means throw the ball quickly to the flat, let your guy get upfield. But Andrew Van
Yeah.
Ginkel is so good at getting in that window and making that throw difficult and sometimes picking that up. And then thirdly, Ivan Pace is just so cool with the way Flores deploys him as a blitzer because he was a like not great athlete, undersized linebacker, but what he was always amazing at, even back to his days at Cincinnati, was he just had this insane pass rush win rate, like just like quickly beating guards on design blitzes. And
Mhm.
Flores uses all three of those guys so well, and it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah. One thing I will applaud Flores for is getting the most out of like misfit toys.
Yeah, but when they're good at one thing, he knows how to put them in
Yeah.
positions to
And
only be
that's what
doing
he
that
like to
one
do.
thing.
Exactly. Find your strengths. And like if you had a big physical tight end, right? That's a common sense. Don't get him out there against Brian Branch and expect him to run a zig route. He's gonna get bagged. Get him in situations where, you know, he's capitalizing on what he's good at rather than, forcing him to be something he's not. And that's what Brian Flores
Right.
is very good at. Did you see that? I think it was Mel Kiper. Like, first of all, what is Mel Kiper doing talking about the sport? Like outside of draft. I want to see that guy talking about the draft, and that's it. I think he said, I think it was him on Get Up or something, saying that they should ban too high.
So dumb. I love the rise of like defenses fighting back, and now defenses have a chance, and it's not just 500-yard passing games all the time, and you got to figure out
Mhm.
how to run the ball. I love that. Like as a
Yeah,
true like fan of the sport in the chess match, I love where the NFL is at right now. Even though I know in a grander scheme of like more kind of casual fandom, it's not good for the league because they want scoring to always be up and throwing the ball and more exciting things happening. But I love it.
yeah. It's almost like you'll see Call of Duty players complain. It's like the battle between casual and professional Call of Duty players. Who do you
Mhm.
pander to here? And the businesses are always going to pander to casual people, but I think that is such a hilarious suggestion to make to pander towards casual people.
Yeah.
Like, why would First of all, how do you implement that? What are you gonna make a 15-yard penalty if two safeties are at the top of the
Yeah,
formation? You're just gonna completely take, and it's not gonna like eliminate cover two. Teams are just gonna start doing what Brian Flores does and like bring down a safety and then have one of your safety rush over to the left to guard the left half or the left half, and then
yeah,
your safety in the box is just gonna
idiotic.
go right. It's impossible
Yeah,
to stop that. That's such
I
a
know.
hilariously bad suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. Well, all right. So we've been talking for a while here. Unless there's one game that you really, really want to talk about, I got one other thing. I think one other topic we could do before we head out. Is there one you like really, really want to talk about, or do you want to kind of move to the next thing?
Not a game specifically, but shout out to the Seahawks. It's a really good team.
On the
Geno Smith
Seahawks
is a
topic,
baller.
if we're gonna get into that a little bit, just
There we go.
quickly, Geno Smith is legitimately good. I
Very good,
love
like
their
top
head
three
coach.
quarterback good.
I love their head coach. I love what the defense is doing.
And
The
that
weapons
defense.
are awesome. JSN breaking out. Kenneth Walker, I think, is sick. Like he's one of the best athletes in the NFL. No one talks about it. Sometimes, I mean, I'm worried that against a good pass rush, that offensive line is going to be like a non-starter.
Yeah, it's a wonder that they are this good with like I think I saw
It's
something.
bad. Charles Cross
I
is
think
good, um,
that's bad.
but it's bad. Like
Yeah, I think they're 32nd in
the first
passing.
half of that Broncos game was like, you guys are so much better than the Broncos, but your offensive line is so bad that you literally can't even compete in this game.
Yeah, and
But
teams, and that's why I
yeah,
don't think they're true Super Bowl contenders because good teams are gonna pick on that and they're gonna make Geno's life hell. But like during the regular season, when you play some middle of the road teams or even bad teams, they're gonna be really good teams.
yeah, I agree. Um, so the last kind of segment I want to have here is if you don't have something in mind, I can kind of go first. Is through 2 weeks, your best, or not even necessarily your best, but like a good take that you had in the off season that's playing out well, and then one that's playing out horribly. Which I can start. give you a second to think. Um,
Let me even scroll through my
my
TikToks.
worst take is that I said the Saints were gonna be horrible and that they were gonna. I think I went through and predicted all these records. I gave them 2 wins, and they already have two. I thought it was going to be like so like necessarily don't have the like a 2 win roster, but they just have such like low forward momentum that things are going to spiral out of control and they're just so uninspiring that they're going to just completely fall apart, fire their coach, Derek Carr benched. Like that's what was predicting to happen, and it could not be more of the opposite. They're one of the most exciting teams in the NFL. I was blatantly wrong. My apology for him. Clint Kubiak is awesome. They I think really should find a way to make him their head coach. Um, but yeah, awfully wrong on that. And then my better one of my better takes, I'm gonna kind of cheat and give two answers where the first one, I said the two teams that I think were gonna be surprised really bad were the Saints and the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have not looked good so far. And I think Doug Peterson has this kind of history of like getting everyone riled up around him and like uh bringing up the culture, but then I think his message gets really stale and then he just does the same thing over and over again to a point where then it stops working and he can't get himself out of the hole and it spirals out of control. This is exactly what happened in
Yeah,
Philadelphia. They were one of the best coach teams in the NFL and then they were one of the worst and he got booted. And I think the same thing's going to play out in Jacksonville. They play the Bills next week. They can start off 0-3. Does he even make it 2 more weeks if they lose? I don't know. But like that's a little bit. I can't count that as a win yet because if they beat the Bills on Monday night, then he just bought himself probably another season.
mhm.
But one that is looking very good, which is I picked Aiden Hutchinson to win Defensive Player of the Year, and he's only gone up against backup defensive tackles before so far, or offensive tackles. With the Rams having all their injuries, and then backup tackle for the Buccaneers. But does he have like 8 sacks already in 2 games?
Yeah, just I think
Like
it's something like that. Let me find out the
Like
exact
he's literally
number.
like well on pace to break I mean, it's only two
Yeah,
weeks, but to break the sack record. So I'll say that's a good take for me so far.
he has 5.5 right now, which is still
Did he not have one in the
ridiculous.
Rams game?
He had more than the Rams, and he had four, or he
I
had
thought he had 5.5 this week, which is regardless. He's the leader.
he had 4.5 against the Bucks, and then one against the
Yeah.
Rams. Yeah, just insane. Honestly, it's the same thing as you. My really, really bad take is the Saints. I
Yeah.
said in Alvin Kamara video where I called him wash, the first sentence of that is the Saints are gonna struggle to move the ball this year. And like
I
like
mean, I
Saints
agreed
fans
with
have been
you.
on that video.
I agreed
Like,
with you.
yeah, update on this is like I was wrong, man. I was very wrong. I still don't even think like Alvin Kamara is the Alvin Kamara of past. I mean, he's not. He's pushing 30, right? But
In this
Clint Kubiak is
offense,
doing such a great
he
job
can
of
be
getting that.
anyone he wants.
Exactly. I'm gonna since that's the same as yours, I'm gonna give you a middle of the road kind of take that isn't necessarily really wrong, but I wasn't right on it.
Mm,
Oh, and then I have another take that I think will be wrong. Actually, okay, so I'm gonna give you like three different ones here.
go for it.
Uh, the Raiders, I was really high on them. I felt like that team was a quarterback away before the season. One thing I did not like. Oh, goodness, jump scare! I'm gonna be out there. I did not guess that their run game would be this bad. I knew Zamir White, not exactly like the most elusive back in the country, and he's not that good, but I thought the interior offensive line was going to be a little better than it has been. But they haven't getting
They
any
lost their
production. They
offensive
haven't
line
been.
coach. I think that's been an underrated
Yeah.
thing. He went to the
Mhm.
Giants. Can't think of his name,
Yeah. I can
but
find it out for you. But yeah, that was one of those. I felt like,
I'll look it up. You keep
uh,
doing it.
gotcha. I felt like Gardner Minshew was a guy who raised their floor, and I felt like they'd go 9-8, even though that's still possible. They're 1-1, but they haven't looked great. Uh, Another one is the Colts. I said
Carmen
the Colts
Bracillo
would.
is that coach, by the way.
Gotcha. I said the Colts would
Colts.
win 12 games
I
in
was
that
high on him.
division.
I still
They
am.
are 0-2 right now. Anthony Richardson has not looked as good as I thought he was, although like that throw he made in week one, this is still a good quarterback. Don't get it twisted. He's gonna iron out like short and intermediate game. They're gonna be a good team. But that defense is just, and I said it in the video where I predicted them to win that many games that the secondary was bad, but I expected the front seven to be a little better. But a good take that I had was the Bengals. I've been a Bengals hater for years. I said they weren't going to be that good. and I said it was because of their defense. Like, and then Joe Burrow, I know he's one of those guys that starts off slow, but we're talking about a dude who, like, really, I'm really starting to get to hating here. He's really never been that great. And I like even that Super Bowl run. They did not go to the Super Bowl because he was in there playing it up, outplaying Patrick Mahomes, outdueling Ryan Tannehill. He didn't even outduel Ryan Tannehill in that game. He threw an interception in that divisional round to lose that game. Ryan Tannehill just so happened to do the exact same thing on the very next possession. He has never been a guy that I was really high on. And then I saw them the way they start off the season, which is against a bunch of good defenses. They play in a great division. I think I predicted them to finish third in that division. I think there's a real world they finish fourth. Uh,
Wow.
I know it's like two weeks into the season, but 0-2.
They looked a
think they
lot
played
better against the
three
Chiefs.
straight good teams. Yeah.
You
They
got to
played
admit
the
that.
Commanders. Yeah, they definitely looked a lot better. But they always play the Chiefs like strangely well. But they get
Yeah.
two easy games out of the way. They get Commanders, Panthers, and then you're talking about playing the Ravens, the Browns, the Eagles, the Raiders, the Ravens again, the Chargers, which look like they have a good defense this year, Steelers, and then maybe the Cowboys. Maybe they have a good defense against you. That's not a team that runs a wide zone. They're a gap running scheme. I believe they're still a gap running scheme, but they don't have a good run game anyway. And then the Titans is like the first, like, and Titans are still a good defense. You don't play a bad defense until probably the Broncos, which is week 17. Uh, they don't have a run game. Their front seven is weak. Even their secondary, I know they were making a lot of plays this weekend. Cam Taylor Britt, for some reason, is the highest rated corner in the league. It's still not that great. I was not high on that team. I still thought they'd have a winning record. Honestly, at this point, I don't think they do. I don't think they have a winning record.
Wow. I like it. I like it. Putting your takes
I'm
out
looking forward
there,
to
I
taking.
think, is always great. I've definitely gotten the like Twitter screenshots in my friends group chat. They'll like screenshot my Twitter when I have an awful take that I have, and then it's blatantly wrong, and then they'll be like, "Oh, like look at this guy. Like, sorry, Tim, had to." And it's like obviously, like the take was wrong. I'm blatantly wrong. Like I'll raise my hand, and I just like make fun of myself. But part of me is also kind of like you should only have the right to make fun of like someone's bad takes if you yourself are also putting takes out there.
Yeah, there's so many people that comment on like anybody who populars videos, like Theo's videos a lot. Like, oh, remember when you said this? Yeah, I'm sure you've had bad takes too, buddy. You just
Yeah,
said it to
like
your friends, not in front of 200,000 followers.
yeah, like my
Like,
whole
all
thing is
right,
like
man.
I feel like you only have the right to make fun of people's takes if you are also actively putting your takes out there to be um criticized.
Mhm,
And if
exactly.
you're not, it's just such low-hanging fruit to be like, oh, this guy's putting every take he has out there, and then I can just pick the ones that he gets wrong, make fun of him for
Yeah,
that, and then all the ones he gets right, I can just say nothing. I don't know. But then I
yeah.
also, on the flip side of that, I think it's really important to like not delete your bad takes. Like leave them out there,
Mhm.
like own them, like that was your take and you were wrong, and then raise your hand when you're wrong, and it's fine to be wrong. That's just my whole.
Yeah, with all my the attention my account is getting, like I could sit there and delete that Saints video and be like, oh, I've never had a bad take, but I don't. I feel like part of it
We
is
all do it.
putting the bad things out
That's
there.
the fun
And then
part.
there's so many takes on there that I feel like are good, but there's a lot of takes on there that are bad, like my Bryce Young take. There's a video. Don't go finding it. Okay, it's really early on my account where I said that I thought he played better than CJ Stroud this year. I was wrong. I'm not going to delete the video, partly because, first of all, if you find that, you're a sicko. Second of all, I mean,
It
that's part of being
happens.
wrong. People, you're going to be wrong.
That's what
That's
makes
the fun of
being
it.
right cool because there's something on the line.
Exactly.
There's
Right.
something on
And
the
if you're
line.
right more than you're wrong, I can deal with being
Doing
wrong.
something right. That's for sure. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully we can make this kind of more semi-regular. I really enjoy this, so please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll see you on the next one. Gonna be another crazy week of NFL. Can't wait to. I'm actually going to the Packers Titans game this weekend in Nashville, so I will be at a game,
Yes. Nice.
which I always have a love-hate relationship with because then I feel like I don't really know what happened with all the other games, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Keep up with it on my phone or something every time I'm at a Cowboys game, which is rare. But
Right. All right. Peace out, everybody.